What is up, guys? It's Doo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about check raise bet lines when we are the 3-bet pot in position pre-flop raiser and our opponent is the out of position pre-flop caller. So we are against the check raise flop bet turn. Let's take a look at MDA for first on the flop. We want to know what boards we should be continuing on, what boards we should be overfolding, and then we will go to the turn. So if you look at MDA for the flop, let's look at preliminary data. We're going to see cutoff first button and also small blind versus big blind 3-bet. In the cutoff first button, we see our opponents are on the low end of GTO, and they're on the low end versus bet 30 and bet 50. But we also notice that they are over barreling the turn when they check raise the flop. Let's also look at small blind versus big blind to see if the same pattern emerges. The field as the 3-bet pot out of position pre-flop caller, we do see them again on the low end of GTO and again over barreling. So that means you want to be a little bit tighter on the flop because they are going to over barrel turn and we will not realize equity as much as theory. Now, a few considerations for what boards we should be overfolding. Any board that has non-intuitive check raises, we want to be overfolding. That means ace-high boards, triple Broadway boards, some double Broadway boards, any monotone board. When we size up, we also want to overfold, and also in tighter formations. So these are the boards where we're going to fold our zero EV continues and be done with the hand. But let's go to the turn, and we already know that the turn population bet frequency is higher than theory. So let's take a spot in GTO Wizard and try to figure this out. Let's say we are on the button, the cutoff RFIs, we have King Jack off. Let's say we have King Jack off and we decide to make a light 3-bet and the cutoff calls. Now the flop comes Jack of spades, 7 of hearts, 4 of spades. We have King of spades, Jack X, and a very good flop for us. We flop top pair, second kicker. Let's go into the AI for a second. And we see that we're going to be ranging for small. So we range for small with our King of spades, Jack of hearts. And our opponent check raises. Now, we should always be calling here because he could have a hand like 10-9 suited, a flush draw, maybe 6-5 suited, 9-8 suited. So we need to be continuing on the flop. But we have to understand the turn. We see on the flop, it's about a 4 big blind mistake to fold, so we always call flop. But on the turn, we know that they over barrel about 5 to 10% more than theory. So let's go to MDA for this spot and also look at other spots as well. This is the 3-bet pot at a position pre-flop caller, check raise bet MDA for 3 formations. The first formation is small blind versus big blind. The second is cutoff versus button, which is the one we are in right now. And the third is the under the gun hijack are combined against an in position 3-bet. We also have the difference between a check raise 30% sizing on the flop and a check raise 50% sizing on the flop. Now, what do you guys notice about this data? You'll notice that the wider the pre-flop formation, this is going to be small blind versus big blind 3-bet, the weaker the range. So a check raise 30% C-bet, bet on the turn is 39 weak overall in the small blind versus big blind 3-bet formation. But if you go to a very tight formation like under the gun versus in position, you see it's 11% stronger. It's 28 weak to 39 weak. This means in tighter formations, we need to be folding more than theory. Now, in the small blind versus big blind, we can call around the GTO percentage because that's what this is. But in the cutoff versus button spot, we need to be slightly overfolding because this is a little too strong. It should be around 39-40%, and it is 33 week. We also notice on the C-bet sizing, if we size up and they check raise, they are going to be stronger. So here we see a 3% discrepancy in the check raise bet line in the small blind versus big blind 3-bet formation. We see in the cutoff first button a 4% discrepancy, and finally in the under the gun versus imposition a 3% discrepancy. Now, a lot of factors involved here, so let's go back to the hand. We have king jack off. If he bets turn, which he will more than theory, and we have a hand like king of spades, jack of hearts, it's a 0 EV continue in a solver, but we should be folding. Why? Well, we see from data that they are too strong in this spot. The only time you want to continue GTO percentages is in the small blind versus big blind 3-bet formation. We also want to look at what cutoff is going to be betting turn with. Do you think people are really going to find a hand like ace-5 of hearts on the turn? Probably not. They probably don't even check raise it on the flop. What about a hand like pocket fives? Again, these are not going to be barreled by population. That means they're going to be too value heavy with a hand like pocket sevens, pocket fours, possibly a hand like ace jack suited. So we can fold our 0 EV continues in this formation. Let's go back to notes. So what we learned here is this. We know the population is on the low side of GTO with their check raise frequencies. We can overfold on the following boards: ace high, double, triple Broadway, monotone, if we size up with our flop c-bet, and tighter formations. We know they overbarrel the turn by about 5 to 10%, even more when they check raise 50. That's closer to 20%. So we need to be a little bit tighter on the flop versus a check raise. Secondarily, we also want to look at the formations. We know in the small blind versus big blind 3-bet formation, when they check raise bet, let's go to MDA again, when they check raise bet, we can defend GTO percentages because that's what this is. In the tighter formations like cutoff first button, and under the gun, hijack versus imposition, we need to overfold, so we should fold our king jack off on the turn in that situation. And if we size up on the flop, again, we need to overfold because they are too strong. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.